Good morning, everyone. I'm Soodie Ansari. I'm with the San Mateo County Office of Education, the coordinator for Early Learning Dual Language Support Services. I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to our first Friday Cafe. And what I will do in the next few minutes is tell you a brief story about the Friday Cafe and how it came to our county and what the story is behind it. San Mateo County Office of Education is launching this initiative with our partners, Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. And it is thanks to our funders, First Five San Mateo County and W.K. Kellogg Foundation, that has made this initiative possible. So how did Friday Cafes start in the first place? They started in 2014 in Connecticut with the goal of creating a network for family engagement professionals. And it's actually based on a model known as Creative Mornings, which started in New York in 2008. And it was a group of graphic artists that came together and wanted to bring together the creative community in New York. And hence, Creative Mornings was born. And I think it's definitely worth noting that after 8 years, they're in 115 cities and 47 countries. So we're pretty ambitious. We're aiming high for our Friday cafes and hoping that soon there will be more cities and states for sure implementing them. At this point, we are the only other state besides Connecticut that's implementing the Friday Cafe. And within California, San Diego is the only other county that's implementing it. And they started a year ago. We met Dr. Judy Carson, who's the creator of Friday Cafe, a year and a half ago in Chicago at a family and community engagement conference. Thought it was a brilliant model, wanted to bring it to San Mateo County, walked up to Judy and said, would you be willing and open to support us in replicating the model in California? And she said, absolutely. And here we are a year and a half later, and she and her colleague Betsy have been just tremendously generous with their knowledge, with how much they've shared with us, and they're so excited about Friday Cafes now being in San Mateo County, and both were saying if only they could be here today and at the kickoff. Some of you are engaged and involved in parent cafes, and there's all this cafe business going on these days, right? Friday Cafe, Parent Cafe. I should say that the Friday Cafe, the cafe in this one stands for Community and Family Engagement. So in terms of, if you're wondering what the difference is between the two, Friday Cafe, as mentioned before, is modeled after Creative Mornings, which came out of New York. And the target audience is really all of you that work at the intersection of families and communities. The roles vary: community health practitioners, coaches, family engagement coordinators, family advocates, you name it. I mean, all of us who are working at this intersection of families and communities, that is what this network is all about. And that this is the space that we want to create for all of us to come together. Parent Cafes, on the other hand, is modeled after World Cafe, which I think many of us are familiar with. And it's based on the Strengthening Families 5 Protective Factors. Its target audience is families. Providers are always welcome as long as we come to the table as peers. So no hierarchies, we come to the table as aunties and uncles and grandparents and parents. What the two have in common is that they both promote peer support, which is the element that is most attractive about both models, and that's what draws the participants to the two cafes. The other is, of course, creating a space where participants feel revived and rejuvenated and inspired to continue to do the deep work of family engagement. And in terms of parent cafes, they also, another element, another goal is to support leadership skills in families. What do they look like? You're experiencing one right now. So we start off with networking. There will always be a brief overview of the model because we recognize that we will always have new guests joining us. This part will be followed by a wonderful local conversation catalyst on topics of interest to participants. And that part will be followed by conversation circles, which basically will revolve around the topic that was just presented. A very unique component of the model is the venue, that they typically take place in creative local community venues with the goal of sparking innovative thinking. The space is neutral to all of us. So some of us don't come to it familiar versus others who are unfamiliar. It's a neutral space, beautiful, engaging space meant to spark innovative thinking. It's also meant to showcase local community resources. I know some have told me already that they've used this space for their retreats. So those of us who've not been here before now know that there's this little gem in our county and we can use it, right? In terms of the mission and goals, again, the mission is, of course, creating a network for professionals working with and at the intersection of families and communities. In terms of goals, there are three major goals that the Connecticut folks are very clear about and make a lot of sense. Expand thinking. These networks are really meant to bring new ideas through the conversation catalyst and also through the conversations amongst us and expand our thinking. Past participants have described them as focused yet free-flowing. So it's not so structured, it's not so content-driven and a workshop type, but really a conversation on topics of interest that we will all come up with. Building connections, of course, through our peer networking and support. And it's also about establishing a robust professional identity for family engagement professionals. Because without it, it will be so difficult, almost impossible, to go in the direction of a more integrated and systemic approach to family engagement. So that's the third goal. Friday Cafe values, again, you will hear this over and over. It's a network, not a training. The cafes are meant to create a safe space for participants to be able to speak to and share what's on your mind, on our mind. Egalitarian. We all come to the table as equals. Again, the hierarchies don't play a role here. Jointly owned, an advisory council and participants will help shape the experience of Friday cafes. No penalty for not attending. The cafes will be recorded. This is actually a strong value that was set from very early on, where it's meant to be a parallel process to our work with families. That just as we don't want to penalize families if they're not able to make it or come to an offering or an event, we also don't want to be penalizing providers if they're not able to make it. So they will be recorded and they will be posted on our chapter, on the San Mateo County chapter on the Friday Cafe website for viewing later. Engine of generosity. This is that notion of, as I mentioned before, that notion of paying it forward. There is no fees for conversation catalysts and those who lead us in a conversation, nor is there any charge to those to participants. Restorative, a critical component. Again, we all know that family engagement work is deep work. We want to make sure that all of you, all of us who are doing this deep work, have a space to come to, feel revived, re-energized, and inspired to go back out and continue to do the amazing work that you do every day. What will it look like here? So we have the cafe scheduled last Friday of the month, starting in February this month, and going through May. We'll take a short break in the summer, and then we'll go back. We'll start up again in the fall. We will be recruiting for an advisory committee. We have a very active, engaged work group in place right now, including our funders from First Five San Mateo. and we will be recruiting members for the advisory committee, which will play an instrumental role in creative venues. We'll need all the help we can get to keep coming up with the venues, and we will be rotating around the county. So we will go on the coast and South County and North County. So we will be rotating. If you have ideas for venues, please let us know. But the advisory council will be very much engaged in that process, as well as identifying topics for our conversations and the and our conversation catalysts. We have, as of yesterday, 2:02, as Carla said, 2:02 p.m., our chapter, our Friday Cafe San Mateo chapter went live on the Friday Cafe website. Another example of just incredible generosity on the part of the Connecticut folks. They just let us in. They just put us in touch with their web designer. So talk about engine of generosity. I mean, we are experiencing it on all levels, and I'm more than grateful. We all are more than grateful for that. So what you will see on our chapter will be information about upcoming Friday cafes. We will do registration through there. So we're going to try to be as green as possible, and eventually we will even do our sign-in on a pad, but we have some time to get there. Vince will help us with that. And if you haven't guessed by now, our chapter color, our county color is teal. Exciting news. This is a National Family and Community Engagement Conference. This is where we met Dr. Judy Carson a year and a half ago in Chicago. The conference is annual. This year it's coming to San Francisco. We highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's just an incredibly life-changing, I would say, conference. It's the most well put together conference I've ever been to. And I'm excited to share with you that we will be, so our proposal was approved. We will be presenting at this conference in June with our colleagues from Connecticut and San Diego. So we will be telling our Friday Cafe stories with, in 3 different phases. We were just born, and then we've got the infant in San Diego, and we've got our toddler in Connecticut. So it will be very exciting. It will be great to see you there. Before ending with this wonderful quote, I also want to let you know that the other thing that we will continue doing is we will have graffiti walls or boards, not walls, don't write on the walls, but well, we will continue to have graffiti boards, and they will always have a stem. For instance, this one, the value of peer support and family engagement is, and we'll continue to bring these back, and we welcome your thoughts and ideas and aha moments to write on there. That is the idea from which came these 2 boards. The teal and the red, those are ideas captured from the Connecticut participants at Friday Cafes. So we will use these for this year, but once we bring this year to an end, and we will have all of your expressions of what all of this means to you, we will create a wordle for our community. And so that's the goal. Please continue to add to the boards. I will end with this, one of my favorite quotes that I think speaks so eloquently to the power of networks. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. Welcome again to our first Friday Cafe. We look forward to continuing this conversation and this journey with you.